Ubisoft just revealed gameplay for Far Cry 6. I've seen it. I also got to play it. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I can play video games if I'm blind, if you click on the link here, or if the link is not there, click the link in the description down below to see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. So yes, recently Ubisoft invited a few people to a hands-off preview event where we got to see and learn all about the island of Yara and what you could expect in Far Cry 6. I should say right up front that yes, this was a hands-off preview event, and you may be asking how I actually got to play it. Am I that special? I mean, well, yeah, yes, you know, but no, but seriously, full disclosure, I have play tested this game a while before the preview event for accessibility purposes. Basically what that means is I got paid to help give feedback on the game's accessibility. I do have to say, even though Ubisoft did pay me for feedback, they did not pay me for the preview or my thoughts on the gameplay. These are my own opinions. Ubisoft knows this and understands that I want to be as honest as possible to you. In this video, I'll be talking about the game, what I saw in the preview, and then talk about what to expect in regards to accessibility, including a chat with Far Cry 6's game designer, Douglas Gregory. So, let's start off with what is Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6 is actually set on the tropical island of Yara in the Caribbean, basically a fictionalized version of Cuba. Anton Castillo, played by Breaking Bad's Giancarlo Esposito, is the leader/dictator of Yara, holding its citizens in a police state for the good of all Yarans, as he's oft to say. You play as Danny, an ex-military dropout in Yara's military who becomes a guerrilla in the resistance against Castillo and his vast military. What's great is that this is the first time you play as a full character instead of a nameless and voiceless protagonist as you did in previous games. You can choose to play as either male or female at the beginning of the game. As you play, you learn the tricks of the trade of how to be a guerrilla badass. With that, you meet some pretty fun characters who help you either with training or upgrading your weapons or gear, or also missions to go on across the vast map of Yara. And when I say vast, it's vast. Ubisoft is known to have really large maps in their games, and this is no exception. Douglas Gregory, or actually, well, I'll be talking to him in a sec, actually has said that this is the largest map than previous Far Cry games. They have several ways to actually get across the island, much like in previous Far Cry games. You can drive, ride, fly, pretty much everything you used to be able to do in the game is in this game, including you can actually be able to ride horses. Yes, you can ride a horse in this. You can upgrade your vehicles with really cool and weird upgrades. Want to soup up your vehicle with a rocket shooting flames in the back? You can do that. Want to add a gun turret to the roof? You can do that too. Plus, all the vehicles are vehicles that were built in the 60s, so you have several classic cars to drive and also to upgrade. However, you have to be careful driving on the main roads of Yara, as there's military police everywhere and checkpoints that will literally have spikes on the road that will cut your tires if you attempt to drive past it without taking it over. And yes, trust me, this is very tough. I had to learn this the hard way. So yes, you definitely are going to have to be careful when driving on the main roads, because those checkpoints will definitely come up and get you. So what are you to do? Well, actually, Yara has special side paths and roads that were built by previous resistant groups that are marked so you can slip past those military checkpoints easily. They're all throughout the map of Yara, and you basically can be able to find them just by having a phone that basically kind of gives you a map of where each path leads and where each path can go. Now let's also talk weapons. There's some crazy ones, like, trust me, crazy ones. Much like the hacked together weapons from New Dawn, you actually have special ones designed from actual guerrilla weapons that were used in real life resistance fights. You can upgrade and find blueprints for these all throughout the island, including my favorite from the preview was actually a CD launcher weapon that basically shot CDs out at people as kind of like shuriken blades almost, and actually acted like a CD player, and in the preview was playing the Macarena. I can't confirm if that's actually in the game like that, but it was a funny moment in the preview. I just wanted to be able to point that out. I actually laughed out loud when I saw that. Speaking of funny, the characters you meet have a pretty wicked sense of humor. It was honestly the most charming thing I found about the game in my playtest. The NPCs you meet have their own unique and fun personality. That's also true of your animal amigos, or basically your animal companions, but they call them amigos in the game. The two they showed off was Guapo, a gator companion that is deadly in combat. Trust me, you do not want to be able to go up against Guapo in this, because whoo, Guapo deadly. And you've all seen it, of course, the tiny and adorable Chorizo, who has 2 legs and is in a doggy chair, will charm the heck out of anyone. And yes, he is as cute as they say he is. I just wanted to pick him up and just kind of like hold him and like have him in my backpack or something. It was so cute. It was so freaking cute. So far, Guapo and Chorizo have been my favorites of the animal amigos that I got to play. And also, this game was described as reality is stranger than fiction. So there's a bit of fun along with the seriousness of the politics that is happening on the island. Oh, and by the way, Castillo is crazy scary in this game. He's definitely going to be a very memorable villain, much like in Far Cry 3 and also in Far Cry 5, as this game often does in this franchise.
If a dog refuses to break, then we must put them down. Mio, the difference between a true Yaran and a fake Yaran, it can be hard to see, but it's there. A true Yaran understands that loyalty to country is key to his survival.
Giancarlo Esposito, from what I've seen, is giving a masterful performance in this. He is going to chew the scenery, just you wait. If you played Far Cry games in the past, this is going to be very much like what you'd expect. Same kind of gameplay, same kind of like story with a pretty like very fleshed out villain. Just this time you actually have your own character this time around. So if you've played and enjoyed the Far Cry games in the past, you're pretty much going to get that here. It's just bigger, louder, and more intense. But the best part about it is that it actually will be accessible. Speaking of, now let's talk accessibility. This game will have a very extensive list of accessibility options that will make this a very accessible experience. I've said this before, Ubisoft is a leader when it comes to accessibility. Not only are features and accessible gameplay being carried over from game to game, but also franchise to franchise. There are things I'm seeing in Far Cry 6 that I've seen in The Division 2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Watch Dogs Legion, including New Dawn that in the previous game in the Far Cry series. The developers really invested in making this as accessible as possible. I know people have shrugged off Ubisoft games as being too big and bloated, and yes, there are still some issues at Ubisoft that need to be addressed. However, I will always focus on what they are doing for accessibility and say that it is a good thing and should be applauded. When I jumped into the playtest, I was reminded at how far Ubisoft has come in the past several years they've dedicated to accessibility. I felt very comfortable holding the controller in my hand without really a lot of barriers in the way. Granted, yes, I played on an early, not for public release build of the game, but the framework was there and I felt right at home. Even though, yes, I did have to focus on the gameplay for like accessibility and playtesting purposes, but I did take some moments to become immersed in the world, and that's what I love most about this game so far. I could do that. I can get lost in the game without my disability getting in the way. That's all I've ever wanted. Video games to me is an escape, and if I want to feel like a resistance fighter taking down a dictatorial regime, I can do that without having to remember, oh right, I'm disabled and shouldn't be able to do this, and failing because I couldn't do a particular thing in the game that I should. That's what being an accessible game should make you feel like. Not only just because there are options to customize to your playstyle, and believe me, there are a ton, but because the game was accessible by design, that's what I really loved about it. Will it cover most of the disability spectrum? I believe it will. Will everyone with a disability be able to play it? I hope so. There will always be holes and gaps, but those gaps are getting smaller and smaller as each new game Ubisoft develops and makes accessibility part of its design. Will it unseat The Last of Us Part 2 as the most accessible game? I honestly have no idea. We'll have to play it when it comes out, but I don't think that trying to compare it to that is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to be able to make these experiences available to everyone. Now, normally I'd save all this to the end of my concluding thoughts, but I felt it necessary to be able to talk about it now So just to know kind of where my thoughts are at before jumping into what is actually going to be in the game. So I hope that makes sense. That being said, let's talk about some of the options you'll find when the game launches. It's a big list, so honestly, I'll just gonna only highlight a few. However, Ubisoft has released a blog post on their Ubisoft News website that outlines a whole list of that will be in Far Cry 6. I will leave a link to that in the description down below. But first, let's actually talk presets. Obviously, with a game this large and a feature list this extensive, you can get lost in all the menus. So Ubisoft created a set of presets for different disability types that you can enable right at the beginning of the game to help you get started. We've seen this in The Last of Us Part 2, where there were presets for vision, hearing, and motor, but what's great is Ubisoft added those presets, but also added presets for motion, which reduces camera shake and controller vibration, disables motion blur and poison/drunken effects, and even turns off reticle sway when aiming a sniper rifle, as well as a color preset that enables an alternated color palette for UI elements that players can further customize in the options menu. And lastly, a cognitive preset, which activates aim resistance, reduces camera shake, increases UI and font size, turns repeated button presses to single presses, reduces controller vibration and differences in loudness of sounds, increases subtitle background contrast, and enables speaker names and subtitles, as well as subtitles for important player character barks. That's a lot for a cognitive, but what's great is that all these options blend together depending on which sort of disability type you are. There's always going to be something that can be able to help and complement what is normally specifically geared towards a specific disability type. So what's amazing as well is that during the launch of the game, when you're choosing these options, there is a menu narrator that can be enabled by a push of a button and will be told to the player once the game launches, so you can go through these menus easier for those who are blind or low vision. But also as well, there is going to be a voiceover component. So if you don't turn on menu narration, you can be able to, at any given point in the menu, be able to hit a button and it will narrate that UI element that you're hovering over or that you're selected, so that you're not going to be alone and trying to be able to figure out where to be able to enable menu narration. You can just enable it at any given time, at any given point, is as you need it. Once you're in the options menus, there are even more cool features that I haven't seen before, such as in controls, there are control presets for left or right-handed controls, which we have seen, and there are also going to be one-handed controls, which I've also seen, but the cool new ones are no presses mode. That remaps any functions from stick presses elsewhere across all game actions and menus. So basically, you don't have to push down L3 or R3 even when this is enabled. Now, normally a game's sprint is usually mapped to pushing L3 or R3. So what did Ubisoft do to be able to make this happen? When you push the thumbsticks all the way forward, your character will automatically start sprinting. As well as there's going to be a holdless mode that will turn all button holds to toggles instead. And trust me, this is actually something that I played with in the playtest, and this I love it. I absolutely love all these new presets, and it's going to be so cool. Another neat feature that I love is when driving a vehicle. If you've watched me play driving games in the past, you know how terrible I am at them. Not only shooting, but driving at the same time. Well, there are options for auto steering / shooter mode, which will automatically steer and follow the road when the player is shooting from the driver's seat. Plus, there's driving and shooting aim assist that will automatically target enemies when aimed at while driving, which is going to be a huge help. In previous Far Cry games, I had always the problem of being able to drive and then also be in combat at the same time, to the point where I would actively stop the car and just try to be able to like shoot my way out, even though it's like not the most ideal thing to do. I just suck at driving that bad. And I'm really excited to be able to actually be able to dive in and actually be able to hopefully be able to like drive and fly more vehicles that'll make it a lot easier for me. And that's kind of like the biggest thing I've always had in previous Far Cry games, was all the vehicles were really difficult for me to be able to operate. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully being able to do better in this game. And that is just some of the highlights. There's also a ton of options for blind and low vision players. There are a ton of UI and HUD customization, including UI and font scaling, highlights around enemies and items, reticle position, thickness, color, etc. The suite for subtitle and captions have been added. That has been in previous Ubisoft games, but they've also been upgraded, including adding closed captions for dialogue to reflect character expressions, such as sighing, laughing, being angry, or upset. Those are generally actually expressed via brackets, as well as a part of the dialogue. So it's going to be really, really great. There's a ton of options. Whew, that's a lot, and it's honestly really exciting. So once again, if you want to be able to read the list of all of the options that are going to be available for Far Cry 6, make sure you check the link to the Ubisoft website down below. So now let's jump into my conversation with game designer Douglas Gregory. I'm really excited because along with being able to see a preview of the game, I did get to sit down with Douglas for this to talk about Far Cry 6's accessibility and get an even further peek at what we can expect. So let's jump right into the conversation. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this. I actually have the honor and the pleasure to be able to speak to Douglas Gregory, who is the game designer over at the Ubisoft Toronto office, working on Far Cry 6. Douglas, thank you so much for coming on my channel and talking about this today.
Oh, thank you for coming to talk with us.
This is great. I'm really excited. Okay, so let's dive into the accessibility, because of course that's why I'm here, why you're here. I'm really excited to be able to learn more about the accessibility of this game. So first off, let's talk about what are some key features for accessibility that will be in Far Cry 6?
So across the board, we've tried to make this the most deeply customizable Far Cry game to date. So you're going to have a lot of control put in players' hands to customize and tune the game the way that's going to work best for them. One of the biggest features and the ones we're most excited about is our control remapping. So players will be able to remap any action in the game to any buttons that are available to them, or any controls, sticks, etc. And that includes contextually specific actions. So it's unlike in some previous titles where you'd have to map everything that was the A button to something else, you can go very specifically. This action I want to be this, but this action I want to be this other thing. You can control them to point at any button or key, to holds or taps or double taps, or even to combinations. So you can say, I want this action to trigger when I hold these two buttons. Oh. So it's really, really deep customization, and it's going to make it a lot easier for players who have potentially more limited access to inputs to make sure they can still access everything that's in the game.
That's awesome. Oh, I love to be able to hear that. I mean, more control remapping is something that's still a bit of something that's hard to be able to do in games today, and I'm glad that you're taking that and tackling that head on for sure.
Definitely something we've noticed as a recurring pain point when we ask, what would you like to see in games? It's more controller remapping, more abilities to customize my controls. And it's one of those things that is just better for absolutely everybody.
100%. Even for myself, that I don't usually would particularly need those specific features for my own disability, like being able to remap or kind of have certain buttons that I don't have to press at the same time and stuff like that. That's something that I personally love to be able, because it removes some barriers for me, and that's kind of goes to the whole thing of accessibility is for everyone. So that's awesome. So my next question is sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say some other things, but you've got
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
So some other features that we're adding are visual outlining on enemies or loot objects or other interactables, as well as the ability to customize things like the reticle, making it a different color, making it thicker or larger on the screen, increasing the size of text in the UI, as well as the size of certain HUD elements.
Ooh, I like to hear that. Now you're speaking the language I like. Okay, that's really cool. Okay, so the next question I have then is, so what are some of the takeaways that you learned going from Far Cry 5 and New Dawn into 6 when it comes to accessibility?
So we got a lot of great feedback from players about how the settings that we had in Far Cry New Dawn were working for them, and that helped us identify areas where there were some gaps. So for instance, we have our visual representation of sound effects, the sort of captions that will appear in the HUD with pointers directing you to where that sound came from. Mm-hmm. And that worked really well for a lot of players, but they also pointed out to us, hey, there's some sound effects that I'd like to see in there that aren't yet. So we were able to identify new categories of sounds that we need to include in that or to prioritize. And as Ivan Kolbich, who's working on these accessibility features, was saying, it's a never-ending process that you release a new set of features that make the game a little bit more accessible, a little bit more inclusive to more players, and now you start to see the next horizon for where you're going to find the next increase in accessibility beyond that.
Yeah, actually, that kind of leads into one of my next question is that essentially I noticed in most Ubisoft properties, essentially they're kind of like carrying the torch, as it were, for accessibility being ported to multiple different franchises as each sort of game comes out. So what are some of the things that you learned from other Ubisoft IPs that helped when making the accessibility for Far Cry 6?
So a couple of big things we're going to be bringing into Far Cry from other Ubisoft franchises include Tobii eye tracking, as well as the cursor snapping from the menus that we saw in Assassin's Creed. So that in addition to the free adjustment of the cursor, you can also press in a direction to snap it immediately to the next interactable item.
Oh, that's really, really cool.
And of course, carrying forward everything that we had from Far Cry New Dawn in terms of the sound captions, etc.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. So, like, actually, I wanted to ask as well, what are actually some, like, how much was player feedback and how much that influenced the accessibility when you were tackling Far Cry 6?
A great deal. So we got excellent feedback from previous games in the franchise, and that allowed us to very clearly identify what's working, what's kind of on the right track, that, yeah, well, we should keep doing more of that, and also where there were some gaps. So I mentioned, for instance, the lack of certain sounds in the captions, so we're addressing that. We've also started bringing on more players into internal playtests. So we've conducted 2 accessibility-focused playtests just in the past year, helping us to identify whether these features are really doing what they need to do and serving the players they need to serve. And also, we've been including more disabled players into the process itself. So we've got an internal accessibility group that's dedicated to sharing best practices throughout the company. And that includes disabled players as a core part of that team.
I love that. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Douglas, for joining me today. I really, really do appreciate it. And good luck with Far Cry 6. We can't wait to be able to play it when it comes out.
I can't wait for you to be able to play it too.
Awesome. Great.
Thanks so much.
I want to thank Douglas for joining me in this video. This is a jam-packed video of just a ton of information, but there's going to be a ton more info that are going to be on the Ubisoft website, and I can't wait to get my hands on this, and hopefully I'll be able to do that in a preview setting soon. Also, I should be able to mention that I can't wait to be able to play this when it comes out on October 7th, 2021, worldwide on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Stadia, Amazon Luna, and for Windows PC exclusively on both the Epic Games Store and the Ubisoft Store. This game will also be available on Ubisoft Plus, Ubisoft subscription service at $14.99 per month. You can cancel anytime. The Ultimate Edition will be available as part of Ubisoft Plus subscription. More info at ubisoftplus.com. I had to read that because I wanted to be able to make sure that I get that information right in there. So once again, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about what I played, or at least, and I hope I can be able to answer them as best I can, obviously without breaking any sort of NDA, or if you have any questions about accessibility in Far Cry 6, please feel free to ask and leave a comment down below in the comments, or you can be able to follow me at Steve Saylor and ask me there as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, because that will honestly actually really help me out. This is the first time I got to really have this much of a deep dive into the accessibility for a game that isn't coming out until much later this year. This is the first time we've ever seen this, and we definitely need to be able to make sure that we that we tell developers and studios that we want more of this. So if you can like this video, I would really, really appreciate it. And also, if you can be able to subscribe to be able to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be able to be notified as to when new videos come out, make sure you hit the bell notification icon. Thank you so much for watching this really long video. I really, really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. As always, I remain obediently yours. Bye.